what are some of the areas, or where, and I'll start off with Mr. McLean. What does land rich mean? And how can somebody become land rich but cash poor?
Yeah, so that's a good question, 𝗣cie. So many persons may have inherited, land through the generations. Their parents may have passed down land to them, or they may have been receipt of land. For example, we had this situation with 𝗟Rឭ, right? 𝗟RY workers
Mhm.
who receive
Right.
land settlements. We're supposed to have petrotrin workers in receipt of property as well. We still are waiting that to come true.
Mm-hmm.
So we have various ways in which someone may come into possession of land, generally through the
Mm-hmm.
family lineage.
Yeah, actually family lineage. And so you're coming to the possession of the land now, uh, and it's a pity Miss Daniel is not here with us, but I guess between Lawrence and Kisun and Pierre, we could I want to relate to the audience just very very quickly. What does that mean when you to actually acquire the land? Because there is land that is entitled to you, and then there's land that you get and you have the title for, right? Is anybody recognizing the difference? There's land that's entitled to you. Grandpa dead. Grandpa said this going to you, but but it's not yours yet, right?
Mhm.
Because there is a process. Lawrence, you want to walk us through a little bit of how that can happen?
Well, as I said, seeing I'm the one with the most gray hair, I will go with Grandpa. Grandpa Lawrence, right? Let's say I have a estate,
Mhm.
um, a 20-acre estate, and I have 6 kids, right?
Right.
What you're looking at here is, before I will, it could be 1/6 spread evenly, or I could say this one gets X amount, Y amount, and you go down the road for the 6 one. That is how you will have lands that you are entitled to. I haven't passed yet, but I have created a will, and I have all the legal documents in place that when I do pass, after the will is probated, then you get you obtain
Correct.
said parcel.
And correct. And so just a reminder that a lot of times land may be entitled to you by will, may be entitled to you by succession. By succession, what we mean by succession is that when somebody dies, there's the laws of succession that kick in, and succession says that the spouse of the person is gets half of the estate, and then the children, it is divided equally among the other half is divided equally among the children. And if those generation died, then there is, and sometimes Lawrence, and I'm sure we see this soon as well. Um, People, a generation went missing. A generation goes missing, and basically we have to now figure out who's entitled to what, because it's now a set of cousins and uncle and nene and all kind of thing, right? So that's it's very interesting to know. Now let's talk a little bit about, and I'll direct this question to Mr. 𝗟ซี้. What could make a land rich or even richer from a valuation perspective?
What could make a land rich or even richer? Uh,
Mm,
from a valuation perspective, of course, the old adage still holds: location, location, location. So
right.
if you're asking about the factors that affect land value, and
Yeah.
then what you can do to increase that value, of course, we have
Mm,
location. As valuers, we modify our comparable evidence according to main elements or characteristics of the property, the subject properties. We have location, size, topography, um, what is on the property right now. So, for example, sometimes the old family house that is no longer inhabitable might actually
mm,
decrease the value of the land at the point
right.
of sale, because you have that disposal cost to take into account. if any particular purchasers may want to buy it, you have to spend some money to get rid of it, you know? So generally, the characteristics of the property and the location and the going rates that are observed in the market in the area. And you can only increase from there by spending money to, say, develop required infrastructure, subdividing. Mr. Lawrence could weigh in on this, going through the town and country planning approval process. You know, it's essentially, so I don't know if we want to get into the whole process of land development and raising your value through that process, but a major part of increasing your land value is to go through the sometimes lengthy process of getting the land on your name, going to town and country and seeing what the highest and best use of that land would be allowed to be put for, going to a land surveyor and doing any layout options before you go to town and country, you know, and then going to Mr. McLean or a real estate agent to put it on the market and see how best you can dispose of that land and increase the value of the land from what you got it, you know?
Right.
So,
and we will, and I want to touch a little bit on that process a bit. But before we get to the actual process of the infrastructure of the land, what are some of these things that may be rather inexpensive but tedious, Mr. Sylvester, that you can do to almost automatically increase the value of your land?
Well, Shiva just stated one of the most obvious ones. Going to town and country, checking out your land, the land use policy for the area where your land is located, and seeing if you can get it changed in a way that will enhance your value. Example would be you have agricultural lands in an area that has been, let's say, close to a village, and that village has been expanding. You can apply to see if those lands can also, that will automatically change the value, as Mr. Kissoon would say, from being priced as an agricultural parcel to being that as a residential parcel. That is an easy but tedious way, as they say. That's just because of the bureaucracy of the systems in Trinidad. You know, in years gone by, somebody can do it themselves, but these days it's not as easy as it used to be.
Accessible to the common man. And so walk us through a little bit about cases that you have personally touched, because one of the things, especially I want our listening audience to understand, is that we provide the service to be able to do this for you and with you and walk you along this process. But Mr. Sylvester, kind of walk us through, what is the expectation those tedious steps?
Okay, you see, the issue really and truly is managing expectations, right? Most people feel all lands, you have a parcel and you should be able, it's your right, it's your land to subdivide it. You have children, you want to subdivide your land, easy. That's one of the things. However, there are policies in place in Trinidad to manage that subdivision of lands and to say what your land is supposed to be used for. There's a whole land use policy in Trinidad. That's a different discussion for a different day.
Correct.
Is that managing of the experience? Because you may want lots, for example, 5,000 square feet lots, but the area that you're located in, they may say only 1 acre plots, but you don't have enough land to subdivide it into 1 acre for each person to get a fair share. So it's those sorts of tricky little things that it's all about knowing what you have, understanding what you have, and then building your whole what you want to get done around that, as opposed to saying I want this and I want the whole policy to fit what I want. That's where people run into problems, and they get angry. They go to the appeal board and they quarrel at the appeal board, and the appeal board watch them and say, all right, no problem, and continue the refusal. It's just that it's not because you want it means that it's you can get it.
It's doable.
So,
Correct.
so what are the grounds? What does town and country planning look for in the area to say whether you can get the approval to subdivide or not? Is it a infrastructure thing? Is it a location thing? Is it expected future state?
And feel free, Lauren, to give us, and Pierre, if you have some input here, to give us some generic ideas of the Trinidad and Tobago terrain. So if you're down west, what you can expect, in the different regionalized.
Well, okay. If you want to, let's see if I could just do some generic things over
Yeah.
over large areas. Okay, let's look at the
Correct.
northern range. Northern
Right.
range as an example, right? I think I may have mentioned this. May have been mentioned in past things. There's a limit as to how high you can build.
300
Up
feet
the
above,
mountain.
I think.
300 feet, right?
Above sea
No,
level.
if that's 90 meters above sea level for those who are strictly metric. You all know, so there are certain areas where you see built up that's above that, right? So if you have lands in those areas, and as they get higher, you get into what is called the watershed, and areas where you don't want built development to take place. So you may have land in areas, let's say,
Diego Mountain.
the back of 𝗟RÍ𝗱 up on the top. Let me think of else. 𝗟RÍ𝗱, some parts of Maraval, some parts of Glencoe, right? Along the northern range. And you may think, well, I'm seeing all these houses here, why can't I? But you have to look at density, population, you have to look at your height above sea level, you have to look at whether the land was zoned as forestry back when the policies were first put in place. And then you will know what you have. If you're looking now in central south area along large agricultural areas, you may only get approvals around major roads, what you call urban developments. But not every road can be considered for urban development, because you may have roads that were just upgraded from an estate trace to a secondary road. You really don't want to have a village popping up in those areas.
Right.
You want that to stay as pristine agricultural land.